Welcome back to the Builder's Bench. I'm Craig Larkins. Today, we're doing a bit of a reality check. The province released its budget earlier this year, and BCCA has followed that up with its spring Stat Pack and industry survey. It's a snapshot of where construction really stands right now. So rising costs, workforce gaps, and uncertainty are still very much in the mix. To help us break it all down, we're joined by BCCA President Chris Atchison. Chris, welcome to the bench.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Always a pleasure to be here.
A big month. It's construction month again. Happy construction month as well when we're recording this episode.
Yeah, thanks. It's the 9th annual Construction and Skilled Trades Month, and it's fantastic for BCCA to really curate this over the years, but we do it with the invitation for the entire sector to get involved, and they never disappoint. The controversial yellow shirts that we've brought out to be our Built Right t-shirts commemorating the 9th annual Construction and Skilled Trades Month are showing up at lunchbox celebrations and contractor breakfasts and just at all pockets of the province where we celebrate the industry. So
I think yellow's a good color. Look at the logo behind us. It's a great color.
Yeah, maybe there's something to that. But I've been reassured by the team that next year will be a more a less polarized color that will bring out some anniversary colors for the 10th anniversary next year. That will be a little bit more, let's say, a little bit more regal.
I will say, though, I've gone to a couple of lunchbox celebrations, and when you walk up and you see all those yellow shirts, it sets the vibe. So
it does.
People are enjoying it. So let's just dive into the conversation, Chris. When the budget was announced back in February, you've called it this a moment of both opportunity and risk for the industry. Can you give us like a 30-second reality check on where the industry stands right now?
Yeah, it's really an interesting time, and this is, I think, with the budget, and then immersing ourselves into construction month, and then having an opportunity to be part of your incredible day with the young construction leaders on the legislature, following that up with our own BCCA Day at the Ledge on Monday, and then having a number of important meetings. I think the messaging is clear there that the construction industry in BC remains strong, it remains resilient, and it continues to play a critical, and I would say the spotlight is on in the role that we are going to play in building the infrastructure and communities that people are relying on every day. That said, like going back to your original point about the budget, there are growing pressures that are starting to test that resilience, that we want to make sure that our provincial leaders, that our private and public owners are aware of. And we're hearing very, very clearly from industry right now that there is concern, and where there's concern and uncertainty, that often means there's just a little bit of heightened pressure on the industry. So the uncertainty can lie in a softening of project pipelines, still escalating, if not out of control, costs in some ways. Recent example being fuel, as a result of the conflict in the Middle East, which has seen fuel prices skyrocket. So we keep forgetting that our industry has to respond to all of these things, dating back in recent memory to pandemic and supply chain and workforce shortages and fuel prices. So there's costs, real costs, that we need to read and react to every day. There's uncertainty in procurement processes. And that's one of our big mandates, is to make sure that there is consistency and there is certainty in all elements that affect the construction industry. That's our job as associations, to try to mitigate those uncertainties. And because construction is often seen in the long term, of course, there's the immediate, what projects are announced, but the longer term continuum of how long the complete life cycles of these massive infrastructure projects, and even smaller ones that are built to last. We're a planning-driven industry, and that uncertainty has real downstream impacts on workforce stability and the ability to deliver projects efficiently. So, for 30 seconds, that turned into 3 minutes. But I think it's important to outline all of that critical messaging that we deliver on behalf of the industry. And that's accentuated in this month.
I think there's so much at play when it comes to everything you were just talking about when it involves so much of the government involvement. So fresh off the day at the legislature, I just want to touch on budget 2026 again. There were commitments to construction, but there were also some concerns. I think there is a new word for 2026, and that is repacing. I have never personally heard of this coming from government and such. And then, of course, the added cost pressures like the PSC. So if you had to narrow it down, Chris, what are the top 2 or 3 things government needs to get right now?
Wow, that's what at our recent meetings, we asked them to make sure that they show commitment to building the province through. So this repacing, you're right, it's brand new. That's going to be the word of the year in the Webster Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary in 2026, I'm sure. So it's figuring out, be clear. What does that mean? Are we canceling? Are we delaying? Are we still investing? Because those are answers that the industry needs. And it shouldn't be just the project proponents. It should be all of industry that is aware of exactly what that means. On the PST question for design consultants and engineers, we've asked very clearly. That should be an easy red line through that requirement in the budget. That's just adding additional costs of which the end user, which is the public, that is going to pay. It's just going to make things cost more. So where we can control prices from good government policy, let's make sure that we bring that forward. Now, the one thing that I will say, Craig, and maybe just while we're talking about budgets and certainty, one thing I will say that our province is still trying to figure out is the implications of the Buy Canadian policies that are being mandated down from Ottawa, from a very strong Liberal government led by Mark Carney, who is now in a majority position. But all indications are that this Buy Canadian policy is going to be applied to all projects, and that includes not just federal projects, but projects that are affected by transfer payments coming to the province. So, we might have been able to infer that before. Now we know that. And that means many, many projects that are coming from that will be in British Columbia are going to cost more, because buying Canadian in the short term, while it's an excellent strategy we can all get behind, is also going to mean there are going to be some supply chain pressures, some material cost pressures, and overall, we can expect another increase in the cost of projects in British Columbia as a result of this strategy. So we are supporting it as Canadians, but we're realistic about the costs that British Columbians can expect to see.
And that's where those conversations need to take place. I think oftentimes Ottawa tends to forget that there's a giant mountain range in between Alberta and BC as well. So even transportation of goods and supplies is another factor in all that. So a great tool for Construction Month, Chris, I wanted to switch gears here, is the Stat Pack. I have it in front of me. I have it all over my office. You should know, glancing at it on occasion. We do bring it to the municipal meetings when we have them as well here with VRCA President Janine Martin. So, but let's talk about the workforce numbers. We know thousands of jobs. I feel like we talk about this quite often. Yes. Ongoing conversation. Where are we at when you think of solutions? Are we talking immigration? Is it apprenticeship investments? What's the latest conversation, I guess, in regards to the workforce?
Yeah, so what we can say about the workforce in British Columbia right now, and we do these our stat packs twice a year, and so we've heard, or we've seen from the data in the last few months that the numbers in the construction are down and then they're up. But year over year, from this time last year, we're up to I think we're up about 12,000 people in the industry based on our numbers from this time last year. So that's showing tremendous strength in the industry, even in spite of the fact that there's some gray clouds on the horizon, right? That people are seeing this softening, but that speaks to the necessity that our survey has showed that workforce shortages are still a major concern, even
Hmm.
though we're not experiencing that same manic, I would say that same urgency about we need more people. That has lessened, but that doesn't mean that there still isn't a need. As this
Hmm.
stat pack points out, we're still at a deficit of about 8,000, just over 8,000 in British Columbia right now. So we still need to do what we can to encourage the youth, to encourage more women, to encourage more underrepresented groups, to encourage our traditional sources of employment to take up these high opportunity occupations that exist, become part of this amazing industry. And whether you want to be, a red seal, a journey person of some sort on a project, or whether you want to be an estimator or a project manager or a company owner. I mean, you mentioned we have 28,000
Yeah.
companies serving the industrial, commercial, institutional, multi-unit residential sector. There's opportunities for business owners to still come into into this realm. But what
Hmm.
we also know about the demographics of our industry is we're aging. There's a high percentage of our industry that is at that 45 years to 60 years, and they will be leaving the industry in the foreseeable future. And we also know that given the Canadian demographics and our birth rates, we're not able to replenish what we have and what our needs are in the industry for the foreseeable future. So that is something that we need to continue to bring this message to Ottawa, that we need to begin in earnest our immigration reform that's based on the labor market needs of people who of the companies that have these job openings and are building these amazing projects in BC and beyond. Uh, but we also need to be targeting folks in other countries who want to come and live and work in Canada and work on these projects and have the skills and attitudes that are necessary. And we're not talking about temporary foreign workers. We're talking about people who want to come and become permanent residents
Yeah.
of British Columbia and other parts of Canada, and really engage in our labor market and help building Canada like they have for generations before us.
We should also point out there's some great facts on the stat pack as well. I was just noticing the number of women in construction and trades is at 12,394. That's up 6%. You have the number of trades workers in BC's construction force, labor force, almost peaking at 200,000, and the overall construction labor force at 264, 600. So those are some big numbers, great impact. But again, you were saying there are still those gaps when we're talking the workforce. So the grassroots stuff helps as well, Chris. I mean, we were talking about the Bring Trades to School program, Honor the Work. The incentives where you get the youth and the kids on the tools early, and that definitely has an impact for future as well. So let's talk about survey results. Speaking of numbers, when you were talking the latest survey results from the BC Construction Industry Survey, builders across the province took part in it. What stood out to you the most? What are people on the ground really worried about?
You know what? Like we've touched on workforce, so
Yeah.
that was a little bit surprising to us, because if we go back 2 years, we knew workforce was it. Just that was the first thing anyone talked about is where are the people? We need work boots in a heartbeat, and we just need people, but nobody was around. Now we didn't anticipate the skilled workforce shortage being as high ranking in the survey as it was. It still remains one of our top two items. The other
Mhm.
one that is not surprising at all is payment uncertainty. Even though we've had tremendous success in this past year with delivering the Construction Prompt Payment Act, it still hasn't been enacted because we still need regulations, as we've talked about before. So
Mhm.
to see that payment certainty is still putting pressure on the industry is a reminder that our work is not yet done. 89% of companies have been paid late at least once in this past year. 63% say they've not been paid for completed work at some point in the past few years, which affects cash flow, which affects health, which affects certainty, which affects livelihoods. And again, those are things that we are, we're in the association business. We're in the construction association business to protect and preserve the livelihoods of those who have chosen
Mhm.
to partake in building this province. So we need to pay attention to those realities that the contractors are facing every day.
Unfortunately, we've seen actually an increase. I'm just right outside our lobby, my office, and we've seen an increase of members coming in and asking for updates on the prompt payment legislation because they haven't been paid, and they're currently in those situations. And obviously, not being a lawyer, I can't advise them on that, but I can advise them on the current state of legislation and offer the great resources you have on your website as well. All right. Almost done, my friend.
Always.
This isn't a rapid fire edition, but it is a juicy edition. We a lot of conversations also around a lot of the funding that's been promised, supply chain pressures. Are we seeing a risk of some of these projects not moving forward, even when the funding is there, because of all the factors we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think that where there is commitment, there is going to be follow through. It's where, like I started from the outset, we're still trying to untangle what repacing means. What is repacing? Is it masking any sort of cancellation or shelving to a time when the financial picture is better? We're still trying to sort through some of that and calling upon the provincial government to be more clear, to be more direct with the industry, and be public about it, because there is the need for the greater industry to have in absence of clarity, there is that uncertainty. And so even if the news is bad, if
Hmm.
we can deal with that, but we need to know, we need to know the straight goods on this. So I think to me, that's the biggest thing, is that's just, we know that things are going to need to get built. Contractors can be disappointed. They can move on. They have mechanisms to by which, if they're owed money for work that they've done or for commitments that have been made, that's what the contracts are for. And so much of the work and the resources that we have on our website is there to help protect those contractors from what they've signed on to. So I would encourage them all, as you've said, with the information that we have on prompt payment legislation. Go check out our website. If you have any questions about your rights and your responsibilities, look us up, contact us, search the website, or get in touch with us directly.
All right. Given everything we've talked about, the stat pack, the survey results, the list of issues that kind of continues to grow, or maybe some new words are added to it, or words are just renamed or removed from the list. What should we be paying attention to over the next 6 to 12 months?
Now that we have, I know very often we're talking about the political landscape,
Hmm.
and it's an incredibly interesting time, and I think we've been saying that for the past couple of years. But what I will say with this is, now we have a very strong majority government with a clear mandate about what they want to do to reassert a vision for Canada. And that is where this new Buy Canadian strategy is going to intersect, and I think in some cases conflict with our provincial government, not in its desire to be, I think everyone wants to be patriotic. Everyone
Hmm.
wants to have national corridors and better national dependence on one another. But for British Columbia, that timing isn't ideal given the situation, given the status of our economy and our current budget.
Hmm.
So, and with this, something that BCCA does a lot of is it talks about procurement. You know, you know, there is going to be some challenges that come to our industry as a result of national policy that's tied to transfer payments, that is going to be embedded into the intricacies of procurement. And procurement at the provincial level is also going to have an effect at municipal procurement. And to the extent that municipalities, some are excellent at procurement, some don't do it a lot. So there's
Hmm.
this disparity about about how our industry is drawn in to bid on projects. And so I think that if there's one major thing that I come back to this often, and it's about clarity and certainty. And the more that our national policies can be parlayed into certainty and consistency at the municipal level and
Hmm.
all the way through the province, there are tools at our disposal. There's the capital asset management framework. There are other resources that we have that we need to all be aligned on, or it could be chaotic, expensive, and uncertain.
Mhm.
And so, in saying that, that's a possibility if we don't get aligned. And our job is to kind of point to the things that have been curated over the years to say, okay, don't panic, don't reinvent the wheel. We've been through things like this before. Resources exist. So let's take a breath, use the resources that exist, and work towards building a system that everyone can understand. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit of a Wild West situation. And I think the last thing I'd mention, and sort of tying this back to the survey, Craig, is that one of the positive trends that we're seeing is the adoption for small, medium-sized companies around the use of technology. So as things become a little bit more um, tied to policy, there
Mhm.
is the use of there is some positive uses of AI and best practices that exist in other areas that can help make our jobs easier. Not take away tools from people who need them, but
Mhm.
to help us understand things faster. And I think that people are um, always going to be required in the construction industry, but where we can help share information more broadly, where we can help with applied learning at scale, uh, technology is going to help this industry, and it's going
Mhm.
to help those who depend on this industry be a little bit better at their jobs and faster, which is what we will also require. So, I just say, we're a problem solver in this industry. There are currently lots of problems that we need to solve, but we always come to the table with those solutions. And there are plenty of solutions out there too that have already been anticipated, and we can see the need for them coming. So use your associations as a
Mhm.
mechanism when you see these problems surfacing for your company.
That is what we are here for. Chris, always appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on the bench today. If you want to dive deeper into the numbers, you can check out the latest BCCA Stat Pack and industry survey at vrca.ca. Just look for the Advocacy Resources tab, and you can also find copies on the BCCA website as well. I'm Craig Larkins. Thanks for joining us on the Builders Bench. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and invite your friends to take a seat on the bench with us.